What is going on, crypto peeps? Hope you guys are having a good Friday. Thank you to those who joined the live stream last night. I had an epic time. I hope you guys did as well. I love doing those things. We've only had 2 live streams so far, but I want to continue to do at least 1 or 2 more consistently per week and shift around the time zones to suit many of you that might not live in the US or at least in the Western Hemisphere. So I will be sure to try to include most of you as well as I can. Say hello to our esteemed guest today. This is the legendary Bob Ross. If you guys don't know who he is, look him up. God rest his soul. Rest in power, Mr. Bob Ross. He is definitely a legend in the game. So an interesting day in the markets. Basically a continuation from what we've seen the last couple of days, but the markets continue to move in somewhat of the same cycle where Bitcoin, reaches a certain level and pulls back and then consolidates and then tries to retest that level again and pulls back and then consolidates. So we see Bitcoin right now trading at around 10,300. Market cap is still at around 450 billion. So there isn't much that has really changed. It looks like, Bitcoin is trying to stabilize itself, and the altcoins are slow to catch up. I think as Bitcoin becomes more stable and tries to find what it's struggling to find right now is it's trying to find its normalized trading range. It doesn't know whether its value is at 5K or 4K or if its value is closer to 20K. So because it went through such a wide range. If we look at the chart here, this is the 1-day chart, because it went through such a parabolic growth here, really starting back in September of last year and just had this massive bull run. There really isn't, and then, obviously a lot more investors entered the market because of this. Now it's trying to find its place with this influx of investors, and it doesn't really know where its value is currently. So that's why you see it struggling within 2018, really going from levels of 13K all the way down to just below 6K, and now we're back up to around 10,000, 11,000 ranges. So we will continue to see, and we're still in the young market, so we'll continue to see what Bitcoin's normalized trading ranges. I will say that there still is an optimistic outlook. At least after the crash that we saw, where the apex, or I guess the low point, was February 6th. That's when Bitcoin dropped just under 6,000. And we're currently on an uptrend from there. So, there isn't really any signs of a major reversal from this uptrend that we see right now. Obviously, things can change, as I always say. But we need the market to give us signs of confirmation before that happens. You do see the reverse head and shoulders pattern forming, right? Here's a shoulder, here's the head, and this right here is possibly another shoulder. So we could see in the interim, within the next few days, Bitcoin decline a bit more in order to complete the shoulder. But if and when it does complete this, I think we will continue back on our rise up. Most likely testing, whoops, did not mean to use that. I meant to use the fib. Most likely testing previous retracement levels. So if we just draw the fib out kind of in a messy fashion, let me close this real quick. So most likely retesting, trying to reach this 0.618 fib level of 11.8, which we really weren't able to hit. I think we got close. We were at 11.6, 11.7, but we need to, this right now is a major point of resistance, this 0.618 fib level. So I think that if we complete this this shoulder pattern right here of this inverted head and shoulders, then we will continue to move up and possibly retest this 0.618 fib level again and see if we can close above it. If not, we might see a similar pullback and consolidation, back down to these 9,500 to 10,500 levels that we've been seeing the last few days. So that is the story with Bitcoin and the markets. What I wanted to discuss today was an interesting article that I saw on CNBC, funny enough, regarding where are the cheapest and most expensive places to mine Bitcoin. And this is interesting for a few reasons. Obviously, that knowledge is valuable, especially if you're a Bitcoin miner. But it's also interesting. And it also speaks to what the geopolitical implications of cryptocurrency are, right? We tend to think of cryptocurrency as a first world endeavor or first world phenomenon, right? You hear about China and South Korea and the US and Japan. These are the big players in cryptocurrency, but it really has implications and benefits even in third world countries. You hear of a lot of countries in Africa and Latin America that are third world countries that are basically leveraging cryptocurrency because the currency, the fiat currency in their countries are so volatile, right? If you look at Venezuela here, the annual inflation rate is 4,000%. That is insane. I mean, the U.S., we talk about inflation being an issue, but we're still dealing in the single digits per year. You go to some countries in Africa and Latin America, you're talking about thousands of percentage points, which is, I mean, that's nuts. Imagine in comparable terms, a gallon of milk might cost $3 today. It might end up costing you $15 in a year. That's just crazy. So what we find with these third world countries is that they're using Bitcoin. They used to use US dollars, right? They used to buy US dollars on the black market, but they're using Bitcoin as a way of parking their money. So like their wages, they transfer that to Bitcoin because it is more stable than their currency, and US dollars are hard to get, right? It requires the involvement of a black market in order for you to acquire US dollars in these foreign countries, right? I mean, where else are they going to get it from? They can't just walk into a bank and exchange for USD. And the government tries to crack down on them buying USD because they want them to spend in local currency. So what these people are resorting to in these third world countries is using cryptocurrency as a way to try to protect their wages and their funds from overinflation, right? So back to this article. Let's start with the most expensive. Here are the most expensive places to mine Bitcoin. Some of these aren't surprising, right? You see like these island nations like the Cook Islands, the Solomon Islands, the Marshall Islands. Obviously you expect everything in those territories to be expensive because they're importing everything, and then because they're small and sort of decentralized, right? They're in the middle of nowhere. The cost of electricity and things of that nature, utilities, you expect that to be expensive. So these aren't really expensive. What was surprising to me was South Korea, being that it is considered one of the mining hubs of the world, right? So it costs $26,170 to mine one Bitcoin in South Korea. I'm surprised that you don't see the US on here, really. And I'm surprised that you don't see China on here, but this is the data as of January 2018. So, and then if we move to the other side of the coin, here's the juicy part, right? Because people are always looking for the cheapest way to mine Bitcoin, and Bitcoin obviously is a limited commodity, right? There will only ever be 21 million, and that doesn't even count the millions that are already lost. So Venezuela is at the bottom of the list, right? And that's not surprising because they're known for subsidizing everything, including their oil. I mean, I think oil, if a gallon of gas in Venezuela is less than 50 cents, which is crazy. But electricity is also heavily subsidized. So it costs $531. That's it. $531 to mine one Bitcoin. And that obviously this doesn't include the equipment or the GPUs or anything. This is, assuming that you have all of the equipment up front. This is how much in electricity it would cost to mine one Bitcoin. So I don't know if Venezuela is cracking down on mining, but I'm surprised that we are not hearing more of professional organizations, or at least government organizations within Venezuela, investing in mining, considering how cheap the mining costs are in Venezuela. So, and then next up you have Trinidad and Tobago, probably not a bad place to live. Uzbekistan, Ukraine, Myanmar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia. So yeah, I mean, back to Venezuela. It's interesting because it's obviously experiencing hyperinflation. So people are at least buying Bitcoin. I haven't heard of a big push to mine Bitcoin. Might expect that to change in the near future. But obviously, the other big news coming out of Venezuela with regards to crypto is the Petro. And the Petro is a cryptocurrency that is supposedly backed by Venezuela's oil reserves. And the government officially came out saying that it raised 735 million from the crowdfunding campaign, or I guess the ICO of the Petro, which is insane. I mean, that's comparable to the Telegram ICO, which raised $850 million so far and is on par to break $1 billion by the time it goes on public sale. But a lot of news outlets, I guess, and people in the crypto community are calling the Venezuelan government liars, saying that 735 million figure can't be real, that they didn't actually raise that. And then they're also bringing into question the validity of the Petro. And the reason is because they're saying that that not only is the Petro, little is known about it, right? They don't know what it's supposed to do, or how the government is going to prove that it actually is backed by the oil reserves. Moreover, are you going to, if a currency, regardless if it's a cryptocurrency or fiat, if it's backed by, a certain government reserve of something, you should have the right and the ability to go to the government with your currency and say, I want to exchange this for X. So you should be able to go to the government in Venezuela and say, I want to exchange this for actual oil reserves or oil itself. Much in the same way that when the US dollar was backed by gold, you were able to actually get your gold back in exchange for your fiat. Obviously, the gold standard is no longer a thing. And then furthermore, Venezuela has a history of inflating its currency on exchanges, right? And providing values that are far from reality. Because it's dealing with such inflation and it's not able to manage the economy very well, it tends to artificially tends to artificially represent the value of the bolivar, which is their fiat currency, on exchanges. So all of those things, Venezuela's history with its own economy is calling it to question the validity of the Petro, as well as the credibility of it. And then moreover, just from a cryptocurrency standpoint, leave all the geopolitical stuff aside, just from a crypto standpoint, what is it supposed to do? It just seems like, they might be trying to mitigate their hyperinflation of their fiat currency by creating another currency, right? They're using cryptocurrency as a way to say, hey, okay, yeah, now forget about the bolivar. We have this cryptocurrency that's now backed by the Petro. So I'm not passing judgment at all. I don't want to talk about my political thoughts and my political opinions regarding what's going on in the world. But it's just, it's interesting to know that these things are going on with regards to crypto, and that, Venezuela is now the first official government in the world, the first official sovereign government that came out with its own crypto. So that is the news with Venezuela and the cheapest and most expensive countries in which to mine Bitcoin. And if you guys are wondering whether you can move to Venezuela with your Dell laptop or MacBook Pro and mine Bitcoin and live there cheaply and then become rich because of all the Bitcoin you mine, sadly, that is not the case. Obviously, mining has become a professional endeavor. And just to give you an idea of the difficulty, here's a chart. I'll leave this in the description as well. This is from bitcoinwisdom.com. But as you suspected, mining is getting more and more difficult over time as more people are doing it and more professional miners come on board. And that was, part of the initial intention of mining, was that it gets harder and harder as more miners are competing for solving these equations. And if you have a typical high-end computer with a high-end graphics card, let's say you're achieving around 500 mega hashes per second, you will be yielding around 0.0000629 Bitcoin per day, which would take you about 435 years to mine a single Bitcoin. So obviously this is not for the small fish anymore. You do need to be one of these huge companies that can invest millions and millions of dollars into multiple rigs with multiple GPUs of the highest capacity. But yeah, so if you are looking to do that, Venezuela might be your next spot. In other news, SEC Advocacy Director Lori Schock says that crypto investors shouldn't flip a coin. Funny. Yeah, thanks, Lori. I'm sure you've made similar statements about binary options and futures. And hilariously, Bank of America now considers crypto a business risk. I'm sure that they have not forgotten about this post from the United States Department of Justice website. Bank of America to pay $16.65 billion in historic Justice Department settlement for financial fraud leading up to and during the financial crisis. I'm so glad we live in a world where these responsible financial actors are looking out for our well-being. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks. All right, guys, that's it for the video. Subscribe here for more crypto talk, trading strategy, and crypto news. Hit that notification bell. Look out for the live streams. Sign up to the Discord. It's free. Sign up to the Patreon for the trade alerts. Stay safe out there. Peace.